Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate empowerment with astrologer Anthony, and I realized I didn't ask how to pronounce your last name.
Picco.
Picco, like the gallo.
Okay, I thought of like orange Picco tea, but 6-1.
Sure. that works. That works. So you're an astrologer. How long have you been doing that?
Professionally since 1986. I got sucked into it in around 83. And I say sucked in because I thought I was into mystical stuff, but I thought astrology was a load of garbage. And my girlfriend at the time had her chart read, and she said, I don't know, it seemed pretty accurate, and I said, all right, I'll check it out. And I was completely freaked out at the end of the reading. I want to know how long they've been tapping my phone, which one of my friends had they interviewed, how they got into my diary. I just didn't understand how it knew so much about me. So I just started grabbing another book. And the next thing I know, 3 years later, I'm doing astrology readings. And here I am 36 years later, still being an astrologer. So I just kind of went down the funnel and got totally into it.
Now, astrology is your full-time gig, is it not?
If I could, it would be. I'm also a freelance graphic artist, which also fits with my chart. And I just started cat sitting. So I'm cat sitting all over Manhattan.
Oh, that's a very popular thing in Manhattan, I'm sure.
And they pay me to hang out with cats. I can't complain. So
that's nice. Oh, yeah. Great work if you can get it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If I could do astrology full-time, I would. I also like a lot of variety. So I'm art directing stuff on the side, little freelance jobs, and I do astrology too. And astrology ebbs and flows. I have had 5 clients over the summer. It's like a desert. And yet I was doing 3 readings a week in the spring. So you just never know. Well, I suppose I could look it up astrologically, but I never have. So
yeah, it's feast and famine, is it not?
It's the nature of any freelance gig,
Yeah,
so,
it is. So I understand what drew you to astrology. I mean, this quest for self-knowledge. I mean, it is, I know enough to make me dangerous, I say. And astrology is really spot on. And when it's spot on, I notice that those are the more self-actualized people, people who are more aware of themselves anyway. Yeah.
It's
to a degree.
Yeah, it's because to a certain degree, half my readings probably are me just telling people you're doing fine. Like everything you're doing in your life is exactly in accordance with what's going on in your chart. So you're in alignment with the universe. Go on your way, But then I get people come in and they're like, tell me how to fix this. And I'm like, oh, God, because they're not really, they want answers. They don't want, I don't give answers. I give directions and I give focus. I believe completely in free will. I don't think astrology locks you down. Oh, you're a Scorpio, you have to be a jerk. Like, no, that's not what we talk about. What it is that I see the astrology chart, your astrology chart, every person is their toolbox.
Yeah.
And there are tendencies in there. And yes, I believe in free will, but I also realize that, a person who's 5 foot 5 inches tall is probably not going to be an NBA basketball player. So now maybe they will. Maybe they're going to be one of those crazy people that become the first 5 foot tall NBA basketball player, because people do that throughout history. They just surprise the honey.
Right.
So, but it's unlikely. And so when I'm talking about free will, I may see in a person's chart, oh, you're really good with numbers. You're really good with this. You're really good with this. Trust yourself here. And then I'll look at another part of their chart and say, but over here, you got some lessons to learn. So be careful when you're dealing in this topic. And I will say that nobody is stunned by their astrology reading. They're stunned that, holy cow, astrology works. but they're like, that's exactly who I am. And so it's a way of knowing yourself that's a little more compact than 12 years in psychotherapy. Not that you shouldn't be in psychotherapy if you need it.
Right.
But at least it gave me a handle on myself. It's like, oh, I know I can trust myself here. I'm really good with writing. I'm really good with graphics. I talk too much. Okay, that's in my chart too. So, you'll see things, or I'll communicate excessively. So that becomes talking too much. Part of the art of astrology is interpreting what it means. And then hopefully the easiest metaphor I use is sometimes you turn to somebody and you go, how when A happens, you always do B and then C. It's like the next time A happens, go to D. Like skip B and C because that's where you always screw up. Find new. So you try to help people find new patterns of expressing what's in their chart.
Yeah, exactly. Helping them maximize their natural gifts and talents.
And so to me, I don't like people use it as an excuse. Oh, I have a Leo moon, so put up with it. It's like, stop that. No.
No. That doesn't give you license to be a jerk.
But you can't sit there and go, oh, that's why it bothers me. I have a bigger ego than other people, and maybe I should be aware of that. Not that you still shouldn't be upset about it or whatever, but understand where it's coming from, and it's easier to deal with it. If you just get upset and you don't know why, you can chase yourself in circles and go nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. How much, okay, I'm getting really philosophical. I'm like stepping out and seeing the big lens. So, we decide in advance when and where we're going to be born, what our circumstances are. I mean, to what extent does that include, let's see, I need my Virgo, not Virgo right there, just right there. And I need my Mars there. How much does that come into it?
Well, I don't remember before I was born, so I can't answer that directly. But I will say I do believe we choose when we're born. I believe we choose family. We make appointments before we're born,
Sure.
And I believe we make the kind of plans where it's like, I want to lead a very spiritual life. If by the time I'm 35, I'm not on track, you should enter my life and interact with me, And sometimes we keep those appointments and sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. I do think we choose a chart based on what we want to accomplish in some way. I've seen some people that clearly started putting their chart together like an hour before they were born. But I've also met people who've been barely waiting for centuries for this date. So it's, we choose it, but there's also, give me a second here. There's inner and outer planets. The inner planets, Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, are basically kind of personality planets. Jupiter and Saturn kind of straddle the middle between society and people, and the outer planets are all about societal movements. Mm. So I may come in as a Capricorn, but I also came in when Pluto was in Leo, which only happens every 200 years or so. So there's me, and then there's how I interact with society as a whole and what's going on, and astrology applies to everything, events, the birth of children, the birth of schools, the creation of nations, starting a job, planning a vacation, all this stuff has a chart. Anything that's started at some point has a chart.
Right.
So if you have that information, you can guide yourself by it. Now, I'm not one of those astrologers that can turn to you and say, Mars is exactly at 8 degrees right now. I'm not obsessed with it. I check my chart from time to time, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, no wonder, I know what's happening this week, kind of a thing.
Sure.
So, and you can be prepared up to a point, but there's even planets in astrology that are the planets of unpredictability, which is Uranus. So when somebody goes, well, what's Uranus going to do to me? It's like, well, anything I tell you is not going to happen because you're going to be expecting it. So it becomes this catch-22. All I can tell a client is, for the next 6 months, Uranus is going to be really giving your moon a hard time. It wants to surprise you. I can tell you that your moon is about your mom, your home, your emotions, and your childhood. Uranus might bring up some stuff from your childhood that you didn't expect.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can at least tell somebody, be prepared for something that's going to surprise you.
Sure.
And And we can only predict. Yeah, some of us don't even use the word predict. We use the word forecast. I turned to a woman years ago, a friend of mine, and I said, I'm not sure what's coming up, but I said, your relationship with your mother over the next 2 years is going to go through a major shift. She was in her 30s. She's like, okay. And I met her a number of years later. Her mother developed cancer. She became her mother's caregiver and took care of her for 2 years until she died. Now, would I have predicted that? No. But I definitely know that something was going to happen with her mother that was going to completely transform her relationship. And believe me, being a caretaker to your mom when she's dying is certainly intense. But that could have been also because the moon was involved. It could have meant that her home could have gone through a huge catastrophe and she had to relocate. There are other things it could have been. I picked mom because of other things in her chart. So sometimes I don't even know what I'm predicting.
Right.
It's like I can tell you, it's like a weatherman, 30% chance of rain today. Well, if you're going to go out without an umbrella, don't look at me,
Mm-hmm.
So I look at it almost as if a good astrologer is really a good emotional and spiritual weather forecaster.
Sure. Absolutely.
I might turn to somebody and say, the next 6 months, it's not a good time to start a new job. It's a good time to wrap things up and take stock of where you are. Or I might turn to somebody and say, hey, it's a time for something completely brand new. Pick something out of your hat and do it, So you can guide people. You can't tell them what to do, and you don't want to tell them what to do, because then they come back to you and want you to tell them to do something else. And I'm not a financial expert. I'm not a real estate mogul. I don't know what to tell people. I can tell them what the energy is and how to work with it, and even being prepared doesn't always help you, because when I first became an astrologer, I'm a Capricorn. I like to plan ahead. So I checked every planetary movement for the next 50 years, figuring I better see what's going to go on for the rest of my life. And I discovered in my early to mid 60s, I was getting an incredibly heavy transit. That I looked at it, I even as a newbie, I was kind of like, what the am I going to do with this?
Right.
And a lot of it was about transforming my public image and becoming more aware. And what I ended up doing without choosing it exactly was people started contacting me to do videos for them. And I started doing videos online, and I started answering more questions on Quora. And the next thing you know, I'm getting more of these, my fame, excuse the smirk when I say that, has spread a lot further. And I could see that. And it forced me to transform a lot. I had like 4 planets getting hit by the same planet in slow motion. So I had to transform Venus, how I related to people, Mercury, how I thought, my sun, who I was, and my midheaven, my public image. The most fascinating part when Pluto got to my Venus was it forced me to evolve further, and Venus is about relationships. And I'm a Capricorn. We're not known for being emotional. And I found myself anticipating my wife's emotions. I was actually developing empathy, which was like, what do I do with this? Because Capricorns are not known for that. But what happened was I started like saying things to my wife, like, you want to do this instead? And after about a month or two, she's like, am I dying? Are you not telling me something? You're being so nice to me. What's going on? I said, I developed empathy. I'm sorry. I'll be meaner. I don't know what to tell you. And I'll be honest, I'm not even sure I would have understood what empathy was before I developed it. And I know what the word definition is.
Sure.
But to feel it and to suddenly realize, oh, that's why my wife does this and this because of that. Oh, no wonder she doesn't like that. And I'm like, where did this come from? So astrology is life. All of our life is life in progress. We're busy till we're dead. And even then we're busy afterwards. But, so I look at astrology as sort of like how we're going to evolve and grow, and you can work with it and see what's going to happen. I can look at a chart and say, life gets better later on. I can look at it and say, you're going to have to work harder later on, So I don't do it. Most readings, I focus on their current state in about a year either way, unless I see the train wreck down the road. I have turned to people and say, 2035, you better call me because you're going to need some help with that, because something going on in a chart. I mean, I don't want to say call me, but you're going to be aware of something. You may want to look for help. kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, look, you mentioned something earlier when we were talking earlier about a meetup with, there was like a journalist, someone in his newsroom who would look at headlines and say, see, this is what is going on with astrology now. Yeah.
Yeah, her name, we talked about it before we got in the air. Her name, I want to give her credit, is Elizabeth Grace with an S instead of Elizabeth with a Z. ElizabethGrace.com is what she does. She started working in a newsroom and she was dabbling in astrology. And she started noticing how often the current positions of the planets fit the headlines and stories perfectly. So then she started a blog where she tried to predict in advance, because she was working at the New York Times. So she figured, well, I'll have the Times headlines here every day, And she said, basically, as far as she's concerned, after 10 years, the New York Times has proven that astrology works, because the headlines, to the point of like, she was lecturing on it recently and I was watching them, just sort of like, my mouth dropped. It's like, how do you come up with this? How do you, but you have to understand, Venus and Aries and the sun. So that's active artism. Oh, well, the Andy Warhol painting sold for the highest price ever that day, and that would feel, I'm not explaining it particularly well because I'm not a mundane astrologer. Mundane astrologers, by definition, are those who are interested in world events.
Yeah.
Okay. I do mostly natal readings, which is people's personal stuff.
Sure.
There's also other branches of financial astrologers, and believe me, Wall Street is full of astrologers. There's no logic going on down there.
Did not realize that.
Yes, there's tons of them down there. I know several myself.
Oh my God!
And there's also medical astrology is another branch, and that's a trickier one. I don't think a lot of medical astrologists are great at what they do. My favorite one, he actually studied medicine first, so it made him a lot easier to connect and make the connections. And he feels that medical astrology is a process. You can't just say, oh, the moon in the fourth house means you're going to get, acne. You can't do that with medicine, because, as I'm sure you understand, our health and our spirituality and emotions are all connected. So you can't just say, A plus B equals C when it comes to a medical thing. So those are the basics of what you can do with astrology. But like I said, as a corporation starts, you can do it for the start of a corporation. The tricky part is really deciding when something begins. And it's funny, this ties into something you said earlier. Do we choose, I want my Mars here, I want my Saturn here before I'm born? You always get these questions from newbies. I'm premature. What's my birth chart? And the answer is, when you took your first breath is when you entered this world. Okay. The doctor guessed your birthday. He didn't know when or she did not know when you were going to be born, but you did, Yeah. And so your first breath after being born is your first independent thing outside of another living being. You're out of your mother. You're on your own now, kid. And that's when we consider the birth.
Yeah.
I do wish we would massage babies into consciousness instead of spanking them, but
and maybe we do that now. It's been a while since I've seen anybody be born.
I've never seen it be born, but my wife actually talking years ago, had a female doctor back when there were no female doctors.
Right.
Well, there were female doctors, of course. And this woman, her pediatrician OB, massaged her into consciousness. She didn't get slapped. Mm-hmm. So somebody was aware of it a few decades ago. So hopefully you're smacking a kid into consciousness. Yeah, right. Okay. What are you, capitalists? Knock it off. You're kind,
I know an astrologer who just does not want to get involved with anybody's birth who was induced. What is your take on that?
I'm going to use the term God very loosely here. Okay. God doesn't play games like that. Okay. I happen to know that Sylvester Stallone's mother had both of her children had a C-section, according to one astrologer told her she should have the kid. I guess it worked for Sylvester. I don't know about Frank, but I don't think you can trick God like that, and I'm using, or spirituality. It's like you're trying to pull a stunt, and I'm not stunt based. I would actually look down upon an astrologer that said something, unless it was a medical reason. Like if somebody said, well, the baby's reversed and it's better if you have this, now for the birth of the child. I could see doing that but telling you when you should be giving birth to your kids, that's way too much manipulation.
I understand. And yet there are people in the world now who had no choice in the matter because it was decided for them. And I mean, that's kind of like, it's like, I couldn't help it. I had absolutely no say because my mom chose to induce or C-section or whatever it is for the health, for convenience sake, whatever it is. But how does that affect somebody?
Well, I would assume, first of all, if their chart would indicate a dominating parent in their chart, because clearly a parent making those kind of decisions is really, to me, over the top. Okay. Maybe a better thing to do this analogy. This woman contacted me a few years ago for Christmas. She wanted to do a reading for all 4 of her children and herself. And I recorded them all and sent them to her. And needless to say, all 4 of the children had an overbearing mother in their chart. Needless to say, she listened to every one of them before she gave it to them, which is not what I had agreed to. So I would assume a person being born during induced labor like that would probably have indications of issues with their parents in their chart to start with. Because that's the poetry at work here. Clearly this control being taken from you is starting before you were even born, So, and I would wonder about somebody that would choose to do that, male or female. I'm not saying one sex is more than the other, but,
well, and often doctors make these choices because they want to be the one to deliver this child. They've known the mother, but they're going on vacation.
Now, we use astrology sometimes to time operations and stuff, but I can't turn to my doctor and say 3 a.m. on Sunday would be perfect because they're not going to be in the hospital at 3 a.m. on Sunday.
No, they're not.
So what you do is you work with, that's the other thing with inducing labor. It's like, you're still dealing with a period of 2 or 3 months where there's a limit to what you can do. If somebody was born in 2020, you got an intense chart. I don't care when they pulled you out. You mentioned 2020 because that's the pandemic, which yes, many astrologers saw it coming, and it's also
election.
The election, the pandemic, and in the sky at the time, Pluto was conjuncting Saturn, which only happens about 100 every 80 or 90 years, which is a major big shift. Here's a good way to put it. The 1960s, all that turmoil of hippies and protests and anti-war stuff, Uranus and Pluto were conjunct in Virgo. And what that literally means, Uranus is the planet of sudden change and surprise and progress. Pluto is the masses, and Virgo is about all the nitpicking rules. So suddenly we have this astrological time bomb that spends their time conjunct for about 2 or 3 years because Uranus catches up and then passes Pluto. And so we had the 60s, and everyone born in the 60s has that inside them.
Yeah,
so
sure. Exactly.
So you're getting that generation now growing up and maybe taking the last generation thing further. Who knows? But I'd have to do work that I haven't done, which is researching people and behavior. But to a certain degree, you're almost giving birth to every next generation by what's going on in the chart. How it affects like people that were born during the 60s, people that were born during different exciting times of the year are going to have it in their chart. And they manifest it somewhere. I mean, due to when I started doing this, I started getting a lot of 60s babies,
I'm one.
And welcome aboard. And in 1988 to about 92, Neptune and Uranus were conjunct in Capricorn, and that's another little mini generation of a powerful influence. And they're all coming to see me now in the last couple of years. They're getting of age, and they're coming to see me. Sure. And they're coming in with exactly what I expected them to come in with, because Neptune, spirituality, and sudden change, Uranus, are in the sign of control, Capricorn, and the sign of practicality. And I knew that these people were going to have issues coming up with practical mysticism of some kind.
Yeah.
And it's almost guaranteed all these people that have come into my practice, they don't want to go up to the mountains and meditate for 7 years and they saw God for 5 minutes. They want to know, on this street corner, I need to psychically know, do I need to go that way or that way? What do I do next? Where people want to have their daily practical intuition. And I'm getting a lot of people looking for that. And people are offering courses for that, how to develop your psychic abilities, how to develop your intuition, because we all got it. We just been talked out of it growing up, you know.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's a big deal.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate You, as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
You do the natal chart, and that's your, kind of your what you go to. How about King Charles, the new King Charles? Have you had a look at him?
I haven't. I suspect, just looking at history in general, he's going to be a very quiet, well-run, ecologically oriented, king.
I like that about him.
And that, again, is more mundane astrology, but it's something that, because I don't even know his chart, but I do know that it's clearly something profound is going on in both his chart and his mother's chart, because this is a big issue for both of them. Not that we don't predict death, by the way. Right. I want to say that off the bat,
no.
because just a quick sidebar. I've done a study of it when I first started. The transits that seem to trigger death are so minor that they happen like 10, 12 times a month.
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, oh, death's no big thing. Okay, I'm leaving. Bye. I gotta go. It's never this big dramatic. It's very rarely, unless it's, a bomb explosion or something that has other extenuating stuff.
Yeah.
Like 9/11 wasn't about people's individuals. It's about, what was going on.
Yeah.
So, I'm rambling all over the place here. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I'm rambling questions. Right.
So,
I think of it like when we set our course for the next lifetime, we have these different exits we can take, like already on the map. It's like I call them exit points, where I could get off the highway there, or I could keep going. I could get off there, or I could keep going. Does that show up in a chart?
Yes, my friend who's a medical astrologer, I'm going to mention him because if you ever need a medical astrology, he's great. Mitchell Scott Lewis. He's also an author. He's written a book of a detective who's also an astrologer, which is kind of amusing. But I needed help with a chart. This woman was quite ill. Her daughters brought me to her. The woman was in her 80s and they were all in their 60s and they loved their mother and everything. And I discussed the chart with my friend Mitch. And we're looking at the chart, and without going to a 20-minute discussion, he said, she can beat this illness if she wants to, but she may not feel like sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
She was dead in 6 months, because I believe we choose when we die. Maybe not conscious. I don't think me chooses, but whatever the larger sense of self, when I'm done, I'll be out of here,
Yeah.
So I do believe it's possible to see, like, you're going to be hitting a brick wall in about a year, and you better be ready for it, because it's going to hurt. And if you don't know what's coming, then you might be, the surprise is part of it. people are so relieved when it's just like, oh, your life is supposed to be going insane right now. It's like, oh, thank God, it's not me. It's like, well, you're involved in it, but it's not, it's because we constantly get challenges in life. You know that, there's only one person ever knew this guy. His chart was so harmonious. It's one of the first people I did. Everything about his life just flowed. I met him like 25 years later. Nothing had changed. He was still flowing. He was still happy. I would have bored the hell out of me, but he was happy. So,
that's awesome.
But there's always surprises. There's even a whole planet dedicated to it. Surprise. That's Uranus.
Uranus. Yeah.
It's a funny thing. All the planets rotate like this around the solar system.
Yeah.
With the North and South Pole.
Mm-hmm.
Uranus rolls around. It's 90 degrees. So Uranus is the planet that's twisted in its orbit.
Yeah. Kind of rolls along.
As opposed to this, it just chuggles along. So this may come up in the discussion. We had up to Saturn for millennia. And then we discovered that we discovered Uranus, we discovered Neptune, eventually we discovered Pluto. Uranus, the planet of unpredictability, surprises, progressive behavior, individual freedom, turned up during the French and American revolutions. That's when they discovered it. And we look around and we go, and suddenly we didn't think kings mattered anymore. And suddenly we decided the individual was more important, et cetera. It took us a while to get the lesson. But that's when we discovered Uranus, and we're still learning it. And so we look at when we discover each planet and relate it to what's going on at that time, because, well, that's why it was discovered. Neptune, in the 1800s, there was a period of history called the Second Great Awakening. That's when you had the Mormons turned up, you had all those people in northern New York, the Seneca Conference, Lily Dale, table tapping, dozens of religions were created. It was a deeply spiritual and twisted time at times, and that's when we discovered Neptune. As a matter of fact, Neptune, which is a very vague planet, it's not about the physical world, was discovered separately twice. And I just thought that is so Neptunian to discover the same thing twice. They didn't realize they'd seen the same object, the two scientists.
Interesting.
But that is so Neptune, because Neptune's so about the nebulous and the things that you can't pin down. So it was discovered twice with two different names.
Oh my gosh. There's something that we're dealing with now, and I think we're always dealing with it in some way or another, is a retrograde. We're in Mercury retrograde, but there's other planets in retrograde right now. So
a lot of them are, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them are. So what to you is the significance of a retrograde?
Okay, first of all, we know it's an illusion. Okay.
Exactly.
It's like if you're flying in a jet plane and you pass the Cessna, it looks like the Cessna is going backwards because you're going 100 miles an hour faster than it is. That's kind of what's happening, is the planet rounds the thing and goes back. From the point of view of the Earth, it looks like it's backing up. Mm-hmm. The two planets that don't back up are the Sun and Moon. Everything else goes retrograde at some point.
Yeah.
The outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, all the way out to Pluto, and whatever else you want to get. We have this other planet on the staging platform, but I haven't used them yet. They go retrograde once a year, and usually for anywhere from 3 to 6 months a year. It's just kind of normal for them. The inner planets is when it gets more personal. Mercury goes retrograde 3 to 4 times a year. When it does, it's 3 weeks at a time. So I just want to say, if you're 30 years old, you've gone through Mercury retrograde at least 90 times. So the first thing I always say about Mercury retrograde is get over it. You've survived this before. Okay. Mercury, when a planet goes retrograde, it finds a different way to express its thing. Right. Mercury is about communications, talking, short trips, immediate electronics. So when Mercury goes retrograde, I usually tell people, double check your appointments, double check your train tickets, have a plan B in case. But the other side of it too, the retrograde is the great re-time. If you're a writer and Mercury's retrograde, go rewrite that story. Go do the changes on something. Redo it or rethink something. Now that happens 3 to 4 times a year. Venus, about every, I think, once a year or so, goes retrograde for a short while. Venus is about relationships. Sometimes when Venus goes retrograde, if it's significant in your chart, you may find people from your past coming back up because they may be old lovers or old friends. It's also very artistically indicated. It could be actually, Venus retrograde is a great time to go antique shopping in used stores, like go for old stuff that can be repurposed in a beauteous kind of way. Wow, that's that pretentious. In a beauty kind of in a decorating way, okay?
Right.
Because Venus is about art, so you can make something attractive and luxurious and comfortable. Now, Mars, I'm going to mention in excess on this one because Mars is doing something it does every 2 years. It's going retro. It's going retro in Gemini on October 30th. Just a couple of weeks from now, and will not be out of Gemini until March 2023. Normally, Mars goes to a sign in about 60 days tops, but then it goes retrograde, and because of where it's going retrograde, it's going to stay in Gemini for 7 months. Mars is about taking action. We have to find a reverse way to take action, kind of a way that's, you could rebuild something, you could, but Gemini is about communications. And I'm wondering, and I'm just guessing here based on my knowledge, everybody's going to be feeling this in some level. Some people's charts will have it exactly where Mars is and they'll feel it stronger. But a lot of Mars kind of burns its energy up in Gemini because Gemini's chatter, information. There's going to be a lot of talking, a lot of communications, maybe a lot of going back on what you said because it's retrograde and saying we're going to reassess this. I think it could be a very interesting time. The fact that Mars is going retrograde like a week before the national election is certainly potential for unexpected results, whatever that means. I have my politics, but I'm not going to get into them. So we do have that thing of something. And by the way, at one point, Obama, I don't remember this, Obama took the oath of office and it was done wrong and they had to redo it later that same day.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. The moon was void, of course, and Mercury was retrograde. Oh. So communications and things you try to finish couldn't get finished and had to be redone. And all the astrologers just sort of like, there we go. It's astrology in action. You know?
That's interesting. Very interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of that stuff behind the scenes that we don't even know of, even in our own lives.
There is an amazing book that I have yet to read. And of course, I'm not going to be able to find it now. In the past 5 years, this guy put together a book using astrology and the history of the last 1,000 years. And pointing out everything that's going on. And it's so fat that it's like, I'll read that someday. But I bought it, and it was actually considered a major publication in its time a couple of years ago because it's such a huge, like 1,000 years of looking at history and saying, look how it coincides with all the stuff that's going on. So there's plenty of proof for astrology. I realize, so I don't try to prove it anymore.
No.
I used to, you believe that crap? Why, yes, I do. Thank you. Goodbye. I don't get into that stuff. But it doesn't rule us, not 1/12 of the world does not act exactly like a Libra. There's a whole chart involved and we're pretty complex. I mean, I love when I go online to answer questions at one of those sites and they'll be like, I'm a Leo, my boyfriend's a Leo, are we good together? It's like, well, it's not that simple, And the fact that people see relationships that simplistically, or I get people who like, where do you look in a chart for how you're going to be like fame? It's like, well, what kind of fame do you want? Serial killer, movie actor, painter, ballerina? It's like fame. I want fame. I can't do anything with that.
Right.
Because these things in life are complex. When I look at relationships, I look at the moon, I look at Mars, because that's the female and male principles. I look at, Venus and Mars are female and male. Mars is the physical side of sex. Venus is the interrelating part of relationships. The moon is your emotional sign. Then I look to what the 7th house of relationships, are there any planets in there? And then I go, I don't want to bore you, but you can see there's a lot of things look, we're compatible with probably 80% of the world, people in the world. We can pretty much get along with most people, but we don't know how to find that spark. I've seen charts of people that should have gotten along and nothing happens. And then I see charts that I want to say, stay away from each other. And they're just like, I want. And I don't think any astrologer can actually tell you what will light that spark.
Right. Yeah.
I can tell you, well, look at this chart. You should get along with them.
Right. Yeah. It's like on paper, this looks great. On paper, this looks horrid. Right.
You know.
But then there's no accounting for all kinds of other things that go into it. Yeah. Do you have any interesting case studies, interesting things you've seen in charts that you like, favorite things that you've done?
Yeah, things that have surprised me along the way. I got one. I was doing this woman's chart, and in preparation, it was like she clearly had no mother. Mother was missing from the chart, and she also had symbols for an incredibly dominating mother. And I'm like, what do I do with this?
Right.
She's like, oh, I can explain that to you. Because I literally told her, I don't know what this means. And she said, oh, I can explain that. I was given up for adoption. And I was adopted. The woman who adopted her was firm and strong, not dictatorial, but a very strong-handed mom. And she said that when she turned in her early 30s, she went and tracked her mom down, her natal mom, her birth mom. And they met in some random restaurant outside of her town. And it was like, I can never acknowledge that you existed, but I'm so happy that you've done well. And I did the right thing by giving you up and da-da-da, but you can never contact me because my family doesn't know and my culture wouldn't understand. So she continued to have this missing mother and a dominating mother at the same time.
That's amazing.
Astrology is always right. Astrology's not so much, because part of it is after 36 years, I've become very aware of my preconceptions and how much that colors what I'm going to tell somebody. And I've worked very hard to try to drop away preconceptions and not make assumptions. Sometimes people surprise you. There's this one woman who had creativity all over her chart. And so I'm like, do you paint? No. Do you draw? No. Do you write? No. No. I said, and so I just thought I wanted to encourage this to open up. I don't want to say you should be more creative because that's like, what do you do with that? But I said, why don't you take a course like in painting just to play, just for fun? And I went to an elaborate discussion of I work here, I don't have time. And it was like, okay, everything I came up with, she had this vivid excuse for. It wasn't just like I'm busy that day. And I don't know why, but in the middle of doing that reading, I suddenly realized she was using her creativity to keep herself from being creative.
Yeah.
And how do you tell somebody that? You can't really. But you can try to suggest to them at some point when you have some time, this would be wonderfully beneficial to you. You can't force anybody to do anything.
No, you can't.
And sometimes you have, like, I know this one woman, let's see if I can explain this. Generally speaking, when the moon and Mars are square, which they're 90 degrees from each other, it means a person has a temper. Moon is emotions. Mars, your first response is to get angry.
Oh, mm-hmm.
In this particular case, her moon was also conjunct Neptune, which gave her this incredibly empathetic, loving, compassionate, to a certain degree, wildly irrational emotional state. Everything she felt intensely. I'm not saying she was over emotional. I don't believe in that, but a very intense person. And the first thing she did is she came out with both guns and started fights with everybody all the time. And what was nice about her chart was there was a lot of stuff in her chart about, she was sort of a social justice warrior. As she lives in New York City, she would start fights with the horse cab drivers in Central Park because she doesn't believe they should be allowed to be in the streets. People litter. She's fighting with everybody in the streets all the time. And always about this social, it's never about me. It's more like, you don't do that. You don't do. Some woman was being threatened by some guy. The next thing you know, she's up in there defending the woman and telling the guy to go beep, And I turned to her at some point and I said, you can't respond to every emotion with anger. There's more emotions than anger. I said, you're not picking your battles. If you want to win the war, you got to pick your battles. It means a guy dropped a soda can in the street, pick it up and put it in the garbage and walk away. You can't so she's learned to she's still, believe me, if I ever need a war, she's in the front lines. But this is an example of when you try to explain to somebody, it's like, you always do this. Don't always do that. Try going here instead. Try to find another path. Look, she's still an incredibly intense person, and none of that will change. But I've tried to give her clues of don't keep hitting the brick wall at 90 miles an hour. Avoid the wall. They go around the wall and not fight with everybody. And that's really one of the things I do the most, is really telling people where they're missing something, hopefully, and how they can bring it into their lives.
Wow. I'm realizing I probably want to sign up for a reading with you.
Okay, I'm fine for that.
And you've got a website.
Yes, ASPICCO. Picco is my last name. My first initial, second initial, ASPICCO.com.
Yeah.
Not only am I there where you can track me down, I have a number of YouTube videos about general astrology. So if you're a beginner, you might not be that into it, but if you've learned a little bit, they're wonderful. I did keep a blog for a long time. They're also posted up there.
Yeah.
I also have an internet radio show called Cosmic Tuesdays, which is on Monday evening because, I'm built that way. And it's at 8:00 Monday evenings, and I interview people like other astrologers, psychics, you. Hopefully, I believe you will be on my show in a few weeks.
Yep.
And I spread the spiritual, psychics, intuitive news. I invite people that have died and come back, and all those shows are accessible through the website by going to links and stuff. So there's a lot to entertain you there about astrology.
And you can also sign up for a reading, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at your services page. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then your contact information on that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being on the Cosmic Tuesday show. That'll be fun. I have no idea what we'll talk about, but I have no problem coming up with stuff to talk about.
Sure.
As do you. I mean, my gosh, your wealth of knowledge on this subject is amazing. And you also are into the Edgar Cayce stuff.
Not Casey as much. Actually, I'm into
Seth. It's
Seth, the Seth Material. I've read them extensively, and I've actually lectured on them a few times. And I do incorporate that into my astrology, not literally. I don't say, well, Seth says your Jupiter should, be doing this. But the big part of Seth is, and he's telling the same story we've been told for millennia. We create reality all the time. We are responsible for everything that happens to us. We're not always consciously aware of that. And so sometimes we create a future that's less than desirable because we've got bad programming growing up or whatever it might be. But that's the thing I'm always aware when I'm talking to people's charts. I want them to understand they can change this. This can be, you can deal with this. This is not impossible. This is, yes, I know that planet square, that isn't always good, but that can be worked with, I've never seen a chart where I would turn to somebody and say, oh, well, here's a razor blades, go slit your wrists, because possibly because it's not polite, but
well, it's not, yeah.
And sometimes what you'll find fascinating is the most challenging charts are often the people that end up doing the most amazing things in life, good or bad. Okay, and that's just amazing that you pulled that off, And what I believe happens is when you have a lot of difficult things in your chart, it's kind of like, sleeping on a lumpy mattress. It's like you got to hammer these lumps out. You've got to do something about it. You can't just sit with it. That's why I said that friend of mine who was very harmonious. It's like he's had a great life. He's not particularly interesting to me, but, and I'm not knocking him. But he isn't as driven as some people are. Some people are just utterly driven by their charts because there's so much energy in it. Yeah. And they chose to come in. Look, I'm sure my friend came in to take it easy this time. Maybe the previous time he was tortured to death, and he said, I'm coasting for my next life, and that's just a legitimate reason to come in as any other, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. He could be an inspiration to others. He could be a catalyst for somebody.
Yeah.
So we never know, and we can't. I mean, for the reason we can't judge, but you're not judging. But you never know what somebody's reasons might be for something like that. Which reminds me, do you delve into karmic astrology at all?
A little bit. I know there are a lot of astrologers that feel you can specifically identify past lives through karma, and by using things in the chart. The things in the chart are called the North and South Node. The North Node is considered the direction you're going, and the South Node is what you already know. They're on opposite sides of the chart.
Sure.
Some people feel by looking at your North Node, you can see what your current karma is, and the South Node would indicate other past lives. I'm not against that concept, but sometimes when things are a little too neat and too well put together, I'm like,
yeah.
So I look at the North Node, and this is how I first learned it. The North Node, the sign it's in and the house it's in, indicates the direction you will go to grow the most in this life. Mm-hmm. The South Node is your toolbox. You already know that stuff. So you don't have to learn it. It's just something you have. An example for me, my North Node is right in my midheaven in Capricorn. I'm supposed to become, the more I move in the direction of being a public authority and a Capricorn figure, the more I'm taking care of my mission. It doesn't matter that my Sun, Venus, and Mercury are all in Capricorn too. It's still an uncomfortable direction because I've never been there before. Yeah. The South Node happens to be sitting right on my home. I know I'm not doing progressive things when I've spent the entire week home and haven't done anything and kind of like just chilled out. So when I specifically say, oh, in 1842, you were in, on a pogrom in Russia. No, but can I say I can see what you're coming out of and what you've already mastered the last time? Mm-hmm. So clearly I've mastered being at home and being a homebody. And so now I'm kind of pushing myself out to be more what the path I will grow the most in this life, right. Which you could certainly call karma, but karma is so very specific. And I'm sure you've mentioned this, but I don't believe karma is punishment. I think it's,
no.
I always feel karma is like, well, you failed that course. So, just take it again. That's all.
Yeah.
It might be the last time you were a doctor, this time, you'll be a plumber. That's all. You're just going to learn something new.
Yeah, exactly. It just means balance. Mm-hmm. It just means finding balance, right? So this has been a fascinating conversation. I mean, we could talk all day. I can't wait to talk with you on Cosmic Tuesdays, and I think that is sometime in October. Yeah, October 17th. So I'm looking forward to. Yeah. Okay. And again, the website is aspicco with 2 C's.com. We'll put that in the show notes along with your bio and everything. Yeah. Any parting thoughts? Anything we haven't discussed that you think is important to mention?
You're going to say this. Not everybody needs an astrology reading. You have astrology. Everybody has to have one. And most of my clients come to me in crisis. Nobody comes like, I'm having a great day. I'm going to go have an astrology reading. They just don't do that very much. Yeah. So understand that there's help available if you need it. But if you kind of know what you're doing, if you look at your life and say, you know what, I've kind of made most of the right choices, you may not need an astrology. You just have to listen. I almost consider astrology kind of like, I jokingly refer to myself as a psychic with training wheels. Because I can always go, well, I don't know anything about that. Oh, Jupiter's squaring your Mars, so I can tell you something about that. I do find as I do the reading, I become more intuitive as the reading goes on. You just naturally, and how you naturally tune in. So the only final thing I just want to say is you can handle it. You just got to figure out how. And astrology can help you if you're stuck. If you're not stuck, go do what you got to do.
Yeah, very empowering, which is our theme for today. All right. Thank you so much, Anthony. I really appreciate it.
A real pleasure, and I'm looking forward to October 17th.
Yep, me too.
Radiate Wellness is an international community of holistic and alternative healers dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.